welcome. We're going to go live with Ed Morrissey, from the editor of hotair.com, in just a minute and talk lots of different great stuff. Also, want to let you know that Karmelo Anthony, the insanity that's coming out today about how vile. I told you that Karmelo was filled with rage. I told you that his family fled from Baton Rouge to start a new life. And I told you that the problems of that family will keep coming back to them no matter what. They raised a son. His grandmama said that it was a racist and biased jury. You will see on Charlemagne the God Show, you will see James Tallarico playing the game that Karmelo has somehow been railroaded. His girlfriend says that he couldn't wait to stab somebody and lick the blood off of a knife. His ex-girlfriend said he was stalking her. Karmelo is everything and way worse than you even thought, and I told you about. Remember, under that tent, there were 7 witnesses that testified. 2 of them were black, and he said, F y'all, I'm not going anywhere. Y'all a bunch of B words. He was threatening. He was menacing. He wanted to kill somebody. He went there to stab somebody. Also, the other past that's coming out about Austin Metcalf is when he was in 6th grade, 12 years old, he spray painted some stuff that said Heil Hitler and, kill all blacks and stuff like that. Some horrible stuff, but he was 12 years old. This is a senior in high school who was murdered. Karmelo didn't know the history of this young man when he was 6. In fact, Karmelo was in Louisiana. Karmelo was just wanting to kill somebody. He is a cold-blooded, sick, rage-filled murderer. Remember the other stuff that was in testimony that came out yesterday that I told you about, that he had an abusive home life, according to testimony behind the scenes. This came out with his defense attorneys, his new defense attorneys. All sorts of stuff. We get into that in just a minute, but first we go to our guest, Ed Morrissey, with Hot Air. Actually, before we go to our guest, Ed Morrissey, we're going to say this. This show is brought to you by IRSprob.com. That's IRSPROB.com, helping good people with IRS problems, specializing in IRS controversy, IRS audits, and tax planning strategies. And now we go to our guest, Ed Morrissey from Hot Air. Ed, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Thank you for coming on, brother. What a crazy twist here in the Karmelo Anthony story. I already had reported that he was filled with rage. He said stuff like F y'all are a bunch of P words. And, you called people bitches under the tent and stuff like that. So I wasn't necessarily terribly surprised, but it's way worse than we thought, huh?
Yeah, it's bad. And, this again gets us back to the so-called gentleman's agreement, which was that neither side was going to dig into the background of either the perp or the victim, because prosecutors felt that they had enough to get the conviction on the charge that they were bringing, and they didn't need to necessarily gild the lily. And what they were trying to avoid was demonizing the victim in this case. And then there was the claim that the prosecution reneged on that during the sentencing. The whole thing is sort of nonsense. He committed the crime. He got a sentence that, frankly, I think was a little on the light side.
Yes.
And for somebody who perpetrated a cold-blooded murder like that. Well, it's not quite cold-blooded, but pretty close to it. He wanted to kill somebody. As you just got done saying, we're finding this out now, is that he had this sort of fantasy of stabbing somebody and licking the blade. This is the type of stuff that would have come out at the trial, and a jury might have found a stronger charge, and it probably would have resulted in a life sentence. And it might still, because they're pushing for a new trial. They just got done forcing the judge in the original trial to recuse because of comments made during the sentencing. That's fine. Another judge will pick this up, and that shouldn't be a big issue. The facts don't change. He stabbed Austin Metcalf. He killed him. And he clearly was the instigator in that. And the idea that you're going to get some sort of a mitigating factor because he's a young black man and they don't know how to deal with people who are hostile to them is nonsense. That there isn't a criminal standard that will accept that. This is an attempt to. I think it's a weak attempt at jury nullification, which is to say, well, don't find him guilty because otherwise you're racist. And I mean, it's a stupid thing. I don't know why anybody's out in front of this case. The facts of this case are terrible.
Right.
And this guy got about as good a deal as he was going to get in the first trial. I suspect he's not going to get a second trial, but
I agree with you 100%. The chances of getting an appeal, getting an appeal is 1 in 100 at best, and then getting the appeal is next to nothing at best, and next to nothing on winning your appeal. So I've been telling people they got 4 days now to get. If they don't finish this whole process entirely in 4 days, it immediately is just automatically done. He doesn't even get an appeal. It's gone, right?
Yeah, there's a time limit on appeals. I mean, I think that they filed though, so I think it's in process. I think the appeal's been filed.
They literally,
if it hasn't been, they're right up against a deadline here. And this was what happened with the young woman who drove her boyfriend and their friend into a brick wall. This was a few years ago.
Yeah,
Mackenzie Shirilla. That case, they filed the appeal 1 day after the deadline. And every single court up the chain said, "Too bad, so sad." That's the reason why deadlines exist.
Don't drive into a brick wall.
Don't drive your friends into a brick wall is the lesson there.
Yeah.
And I would say that if you're looking at the Mackenzie Shirilla case, there were a lot of people that wanted to go out and make excuses for her too. Oh, she's a young girl. Oh, she was struggling with some sort of mental issue, and she had some sort of some sort of metabolism issue that the mother tried to throw in there. I don't know if you ever saw the documentary on that case.
No, I didn't.
Parents were, oh my gosh. All you need to do is watch this thing, and you see exactly where Mackenzie Shirilla came by her entitlement, because it's coming from her mom and dad.
Yeah.
And I get the sense with Karmelo Anthony's obviously different sort of manifestation of this, but there's a sense of entitlement that Karmelo Anthony is somehow entitled to react violently
because
to people
he's
telling
black.
him to get out from underneath their tent because he's black and he's a teenager and it's Texas.
Right.
And like I said, he got about as good a deal as I think he was going to get. If they actually, I think it's a bad idea to appeal this, because I think if it goes back in front of a jury, prosecutors are going to up the charges. They're going to bring all this stuff into the courtroom this time.
Yes.
And they're going to make sure that this guy spends the rest of his life in prison rather than just 35 years of it.
As he should. Because all this information is revealed. He is a freaking murderer. Now, did you also hear that his parents took them when he was in Baton Rouge to LSU as some kind of a place for like a violence clinic for youth or something to help them? I heard that this morning on Fox News. So I mean, this kid has been a violent a person wanting to murder people for years and years and years, and his parents moved him here to have the same thing happen here that would have happened over there. Is my belief. And then they lied and say it was an all-white jury, the parents. What a bunch of freaking lies. There were 3 Indian Americans, I believe, 3 Hispanics, I think 2 or 3 Indian Americans, and 1 woman in a hijab. Out of the total, like 6, I think there's 6 alternates and 12 jurors. And also I heard today with the former chief prosecutor of Collin County, she said that when you have a case like this and it's done, the judge, who is the new judge right now looking at this, they literally have tremendous deference to what the juries and the judge did in the case, and they're very, very, very low to ever go back against that jury and that judge. Talk to me.
Yeah. So this is one of the misinterpretations I think that people have of the appeals process. It's almost never about the facts of the case. You appeal court cases based on errors in procedure or errors in jury instructions, that sort of thing, where the error is significant enough to call into question whether or not the person received a fair trial. It's not just that, oh, well, he says he's innocent, so we're appealing it. I mean, you certainly can try that, but it's very unlikely. You're very unlikely to actually get that, because if a jury, first off, I think that this had a grand jury. I think there was a grand jury indictment that was filed in this.
Yes.
And then you have a trial jury that has heard all the evidence and said he's guilty, as long as none of the evidence was tainted, right? Like, and I'm not saying this happened in the Karmelo Anthony case. I'm just talking, hypothetically, somebody wasn't read their Miranda rights, and the subsequent conversations led to hard evidence that led to a conviction, and a judge looks at that and says, well, no, that was, fruit of the poison, fruit of the poison tree, or poison fruit, whatever the phrase is. So no, we need to toss this out, and you need to start over from scratch without that evidence. Well, there's nothing in this case that was admitted that is really challengeable. And the fact is I don't think that they even dispute the fact. I mean, certainly the family isn't disputing the fact that he did it. They're just claiming that it was self-defense because the boys were mean to him. Which is, again, I don't know. Have you ever taken a concealed carry course?
Yes, I do. Like yes, I did. And I do all the time. I carry all the time.
Right. So, not that I, necessarily want to pry, but the thing is that when you go through these courses, they teach you what self-defense actually is. And it's a whole lot more restricted than people actually think it is.
Yes.
You have to not initiate the confrontation.
Right.
If you have initiated or participated in the confrontation, then it doesn't matter whether you got to stand your ground state or not. You have to remove yourself from that.
Right.
This is the Kyle Rittenhouse scenario. You have to remove yourself from that and try to get away. If they follow you and threaten you with, grave bodily harm or death, then you can then
pop them and drop them.
Lethal. Yeah, your right to lethal self-defense is.
It also
restored.
goes into the size of the person, of the perceived threat, the actual threat. And there's a lie that Karmelo was like 100 pounds, or excuse me, that Austin Metcalf was 100 pounds more and 6 inches. He was 2 inches taller and like 30 or 40 pounds heavier. It was the difference is nominal.
And it doesn't make any. It makes actually makes no difference
whatsoever. Because he's not the aggressor, right?
Because he wasn't the aggressor, right? Carmelo Anthony was the aggressor. Carmelo Anthony stabbed him after a mouthing off type of fight. You can't. That doesn't fall under self-defense. It doesn't fall under a mitigating circumstance for a sentence reduction either. And this is something that this is the reason why I tell everybody, even if you don't ever want to buy a gun, even if you never want to carry a gun, go through a concealed carry course, because you will get a whole different perspective as to what that actually means.
I walked out of there not even wanting to ever do it. I walked out of there never wanting to pull out my weapon. Yeah. I had a great instructor who actually had to use his weapon. Wow.
And he said it's the worst feeling in the world. You really wish you were dead rather than the other person.
Yes, because people don't understand, even righteous shoots. I talk about this all the time with cops and our military. Even when it's completely righteous and they know it, it is still a haunting, horrible thing that demands a lot of counseling, and they are forever changed and scarred from that. Let's go to Tallarico. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think what's remarkable about this is nobody on the Carmelo Anthony side even will even admit to that. They're not even concerned about that. The victim is of no consequence to them. Carmelo Anthony is the only thing that matters to them. And I think that that's part of the reason why Carmelo Anthony is the way he is. First off, it's sort of like the Mackenzie Shirilla thing. And the other thing is, it just points out that this isn't about justice. They're just trying to make this into a political argument for the sake of stoking division.
Let's be clear. Carmelo
this has nothing to do with race.
Let's be clear. Carmelo is the real victim. Carmelo is the real victim here. Let's be clear. Let's get in line with the team here. Let's go to Tallarico on the Breakfast Club. I can't believe all these idiots. And Tallarico, literally, I mean, he's not going to win. We'll get to that in a second too. But here he is on Carmelo Anthony. Listen to this garbage.
Texas, we see what happened with Carmelo Anthony, and you said it was a tragedy.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Well, I've done a lot of work in the State House on justice reform, and right now we've got a system that doesn't serve all Americans equally, and we know that Black Texans have not gotten the justice they deserve in many cases. And I'm not an expert on this particular case, but I know that there were no Black members of the jury. And to me, that's the only evidence you need to really prove that this system is not working.
It's broken, Ed. Ed, what is your reaction? I saw you wincing, laughing, etc. Talk to me. What's your reaction to that?
I don't know anything about this case. Let me opine about it nonetheless. I have never been briefed on. Why is he there? Why he's on the Breakfast Club? What did he think they were going to talk about? The World Cup soccer series? Of course they're going to talk about this. You mean to tell me he didn't even bother to get read into the facts of the case before he's on with Charlemagne the God and the other people of the crew?
Right.
Which, by the way, is it's an interesting podcast. I've seen a lot of really interesting podcasts.
Yeah.
And Charlemagne the God is kind of an interesting guy,
He's
right?
I don't agree with most of what he says, but he's a hell of a talent. Yeah.
He's very talented, and he gets people on there, and interesting things happen, which is, probably more than you're gonna get out of me, actually, Chris. But hey,
come on, Ed, come on, get in the thong.
But I mean,
will that help us?
Yeah, I'll put on my two-piece bathing suit.
Yeah,
that will be a very interesting outcome from this podcast. Anyway, why would he not even bother to do a little homework before he showed up on the set? I mean, if I was invited to be on that podcast, I would know as a Texan this is one of the topics that's going to come up, and I better make sure that I got my facts straight on it before I start opining about it. But this is James Tallarico. He's a mile wide and an inch deep.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I lived in Texas. Now I've been here for about 5 years. I really should use the phrase "all hat, no cattle,"
right?
Which I love that phrase too. But
yes.
I grew up with a mile wide and an inch deep. He's everywhere and nowhere at the same time, and this is a great example of that. He's basically telling Charlemagne the God and that audience what they want to hear.
Yes,
he has it's nothing more than that. It's pandering, and it's sort of like this simpish pandering where he's getting fussy and, well, I just know that the black man can't get no justice in Texas.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah, basically.
It's idiotic. It's reductive. Frankly, it's insultingly paternal, right? It's condescending. Yeah. And I mean, I saw this thing earlier today, right? And I have it in a post that's coming up later. It's like, this is the reason why Tallarico's not going to win, is because most Texans are not going to react to this. This is the reason why Tallarico's doing this, is because black voters in Texas are furious that he challenged Jasmine Crockett for this nomination.
Oh,
and he actually won.
Yes.
That's what this is. It's all about intersectionality. He's a white progressive from Austin. He didn't have any business running against a black woman who was already a member of Congress and who was higher up the intersectionality chain. So that's all this is about. He's got a pretty big war chest. I think it's somewhere around 40 million or something like that. He's earmarking $25 million to appeal to the black voters in Texas. As a Democrat. Okay. Now, Ken Paxton needs to start raising some money. Republicans need to start opening up their pocketbooks. And
Trump's coming to Houston. I don't know if he already did for Paxton, right?
Yeah. He's going to, there's going to be some money raised there. And I think the donors are going to get back on board. I look at Labor Day and I figure if the money's not there by Labor Day, then the NRSC is going to have to dive in there. And some of the PACs are going to have to dive in there. Maybe Trump's MAGA Incorporated PAC will spend heavily in Texas. Because Tallarico's already spending. You can see the ads running.
Oh, yeah.
But if he's spending $25 million trying to convince black voters to support him, he's not even at the Colin Allred level yet.
Yes, and Colin Allred
herself said this. Yeah,
Colin Allred lost by 9 points to Ted Cruz, or 8 points.
9 points.
My prediction is that. Oh, first of all, I read from Grover Jeffers in the Dallas Morning News, political guy. For them, that Tallarico has to get Hussein Obama level numbers. He's got to have rainbows shooting out of his wrists to the black community and riding on a unicorn, and he ain't going to get grandma and grandpa black, more conservative Democrat voters, traditional black Democrats to the polls for who he is my humble opinion. I predict, and you can don't totally rebuke me, I predict that Tallarico's going to lose by 7 to 12 points. I think closer to 7. What do you actually think?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I don't think he gets back to Colin Allred numbers. Colin Allred was a member of Congress when he ran, was it 2 years ago? It was 2 years ago, right? Yep. He was a member of Congress. He was pretty prominent. He was a Texas football star. He was at Baylor University, which is nearby where I live, right?
Yes.
And they leaned heavily into that. And the reason why I know that Colin Allred was at Baylor University is because every single show I had Colin Allred was at Baylor University. They had ads all over the place for that.
Wow.
Tallarico doesn't have anywhere near that kind of appeal, and he's a weak-kneed, white progressive.
Yes.
Running in even, I think he'd have trouble winning, citywide in Austin for an executive position.
Really? Wow.
He's not going to win statewide in Texas. Here's the thing that people forget. Texas has the longest losing streak for a single party in statewide elections.
Like 32 years?
Even beat Minnesota. 32 years. It's been
since
1994.
I won.
There you go.
Okay.
Now, my former state, the one I moved from, Minnesota, has a Republican skunk record of about 20 years, right? The last time a Republican won statewide there was 2006. And that was when Tim Pawlenty barely got reelected.
I remember Tim Pawlenty.
And he's the last Republican.
I was doing talk radio in 2006 there at KSTP. Go ahead, though. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, KSTP. Yeah.
AM 1500, KSTP, St. Paul, Minneapolis.
AM 1500. I was over on the AM 1280 The Patriot on Saturday afternoons.
So we were like fighting. We were fighting. We were competing.
We were. You probably won that, by the way. I don't know.
I hope so. I don't know. Hey, I got to ask you this. Can I pause for a second? I want to do it. We got we got 8 or 9 minutes left. I want to do a lightning round with you. I'm going to pause for a quick timeout and then come right back to you. Is that okay, Ed? Ed Morrissey, hotair.com. It's right there on the label there. Ed Morrissey, hotair.com. Back in just 1 second with us. I'm having a blast with you, by the way. I appreciate you very much. This show is brought to you by IRSprob.com. That's IRSprob.com, helping good people with IRS problems, specializing in IRS controversy, IRS audits, and tax planning strategies. Randy has been my CPA for over 10 years. Here we are 10 years ago. Me, Randy, the whole band, George and Ray, and they're all still together, and so am I with them. Randy speaking at UT Austin, his alma mater, where he graduated from, of course, which is the best accountancy school in the state. I want you to, if you have somebody that you lost in your family and there's IRS issues, if you have IRS issues, maybe you're a small business, or if you just want a great tax planner, go to IRSprob.com. That's IRSprob.com, or call 214-214-3000. That's 214-214-3000, and tell them Chris Crock sent you. Here is Due West Foundation and Plumbing. They have been my plumbers and foundation folk for over 11 years, like 11 and a half years. They were at my house snaking the line. They were also at my house replacing my T&P valve on top of my water heater. That water heater is a top brand that they put in about 9 years ago. It's still going great, but you got to replace the T&P valve every once in a while. Due West Foundation and Plumbing. My wife worked there for 3 years. Jim Dutton's dad started it in Houston in the 70s. It's in Houston and Dallas-Fort Worth. They do foundation, they do plumbing. You don't ever want a plumbing person that doesn't do foundation or a foundation person that doesn't do plumbing. They will blame each other and you'll have problems. Use my plumber and my foundation people for over 11 years. Go to du-west.com. That's du-west.com, or call 972-406-0912, 972-406-0912. If you want the best, call Due West and tell them Chris Crock sent you. Now we go back to Ed Morrissey. We do a little lightning round. Ed Morrissey, editor of hotair.com. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome back, my fellow Texan, who's only about an hour and a half from me where I'm sitting right now. Yeah, baby. Okay, let's play some audio. Hey, did you hear about this idiot? Let me show you some. This idiot, Brittany something or other. She's running for state house in Collin County. She has arrests for like tons of arrests. She's fleeing and eluding police, going 120 miles per hour. Cocaine in the car. She pleaded guilty to that. She got a DWI. She's fighting with cops. She's beating people up in Champaign-Urbana. I mean, this woman's running for a Democrat in Collin County. Can you believe? Have you heard about this Brittany something? I can't remember her last name. Did you hear about that?
I have not heard about her, but I'll be Googling her real
Texas
soon.
Texas scorecard. They whooped her ass in a great story. She's running for the state house. She's a good Democrat. Big Ten party, Ed. Big Ten party. All right, and then let's go. All right, Darlene Graham. We've all seen it, but we'll play it real fast again.
Senator, are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? If so, why?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, so.
Yeah, that's insane. Remember, lightning round, go.
Yeah. Clearly not ready for the job.
So
she was great as a placeholder for her late brother.
Yeah.
That's where they should have left it. Donald Trump should have stayed out of that. Yeah. Ralph Norman is probably going to cream her in the next week. Is it next week? Yeah, I think it's next week in the runoff. Yeah.
All right, one more
Sad,
Tellerico.
though.
Quit lightning around again on this one. Quick Tellerico.
God is not a Presbyterian. God is not a Christian. God is not a noun at all.
God's not a Christian? I mean, is that
God's not a noun? I'm kind of stuck on God's not a noun. God is definitely a noun. It's a proper
Yes.
noun, by the way.
It's unbelievable.
I may be being pedantic, but God is a noun.
yeah?
We got
and God's not a
news for you.
Christian.
God's a noun.
God's not a Christian.
Yeah,
A
God's not a
religion
Christian.
based on Christ, his son. What?
Yeah, if you believe he's Presbyterian, right? So he's supposed to believe that, God so loved the world that he sent his only son,
Amen. Yeah.
right? Amen. Absolutely, amen. I'm Catholic.
So whoever
we
you
do read,
know,
we do
shall
read the
not
Bible.
perish.
We
Yes.
just
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, yes, I mean, if you're a Christian, you believe that God sent Christ to save you personally, that you to be your own personal savior. So yes, God is actually Christian. If you're a Christian, if you aren't a Christian, if you think that, if you believe in Allah, you think that
Allah.
God is Muslim. And if you
Allah.
and I think if you're Jewish, you probably think that God has not been kind to you, but God is Jewish.
Yes, exactly. All right, Trump declares, this is your column, Trump declares economic D-Day on Iran. Is this going to work?
Well, it has the opportunity to work. I mean, I think it's probably the best of all worlds, or it's not the best of all worlds. It's the best of what's left as an option. We're not going to invade. We're not going to be able to dislodge them simply by bombing them. I think that what you have to do is you really have to punish everybody who's doing business with Iran, which is what they're doing. The UAE is, at least for the moment, saying that they're going to go along with this because Iran just shot 2 ballistic missiles at them today.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that this is the most likely scenario by which the IRGC collapses.
You think it's going to happen?
That's really what.
Number one, do you think it's going to happen?
No.
And number two, they're going to, intensify massive attacks and everything running up to our primaries because they want to destroy the Republicans so they can hold tight and not get hit hard by us.
I think it's a really stupid strategy. If that's what they're aiming for, it's a really stupid strategy. They should be offering deals.
Oh, speaking of which, J.D. Vance reveals a new phase in Iran war. He warns the U.S. faces a delicate dance with Iran. There is no delicate dance. They're freaking terrorists. I can't stand. J.D. Vance should not be our next president. Go ahead, sir.
No, I agree with you. I'm going to be a Marco Rubio guy, I think, when the time comes.
Me too.
Next year. Because I think Marco Rubio understands the nature of this regime, and I don't think J.D. Vance does. And frankly, I don't think General Dan Kane understood it either.
Really? Okay.
He was out there. Well, he was out there in April when we first did the ceasefire, whatever it was we were calling it, the pause.
Yeah.
And he says, no one should mistake our restraint for weakness. That's exactly how the Iranians see restraint. They don't. It's a different set of values. If you're restraining yourself, it's because you don't have the strength to carry on. That's the message that comes through.
Yeah.
So I think honestly, the American people are not going to support an invasion. It's impossible to do anyway.
Right.
You'd need probably 2 million people to do it, even just barely. It would be like trying to invade Japan in August 1945 or November 1945, as it was going to be. It will be a disaster. And you can't just leave, because if you just leave, then you have left them in control of everything.
Absolutely. FBI arrest Big Mama for ISIS-linked attack to Albany at the state capitol. Jessica Bowie, 35, from Albany, busted. Your thoughts on another, I don't know if she's a white liberal. She will probably turn out that she is a liberal. I have no idea, but she became an Islam 5 years ago, and now Big Mama wants to blow us all up. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's always a few traitors in every conflict, and this is yet another one. I would like to see them tried for treason, frankly, and stop pussyfooting around about this.
That's a great idea,
because this is how you deter future traitors. Is you hang a couple of them, and suddenly the incentives kick into gear here. My guess is, though, that they'll charge her. They're going to charge her under a federal statute that basically is going to give her life in prison, probably, or something very close to it.
We got like a minute
assuming
left.
it's true. Assuming it's true, by the way, because it didn't actually happen. And we have to say, maybe the FBI got it wrong or whatever, but yeah.
You never know. Yeah, but okay, now what do you think? I love El Sayed, your column. I'm kind of like Jesus, only more black. You know what else? He also said, he called himself an African American yesterday.
That's what I was talking about. That's part of the.
I know. But he's also like Jesus. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm African. Yeah. Well, they said Jesus was a radical too. No, they actually didn't. That wasn't
right.
That's not actually what they said about Jesus. They said he was a heretic, but not a radical.
Is he actually?
And honestly, theologically, when you're talking about radicals, you're talking about Barabbas, right? And supposedly that was Judas Iscariot. He wanted a radical revolutionary. Yeah, they weren't calling Jesus a radical. I don't know where El Sayed gets his material, but he really needs to get a subscription to like a actual encyclopedia or something. I don't know what he's thinking.
I think there's no way in hell he's going to win in Michigan. Maybe you do, though. What do you think on that real fast before we get to the Britain Boogaloo?
No, I don't think he wins. I think you're already seeing Democrats peeling away from the guy. I don't, he lost Detroit against Haley Stevens. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to lose them for good. Right. But clearly black voters there were not entranced by his obsession with Palestine as opposed to actually doing something for the people of Detroit. Right. And so I think these DSA types, and I know El Sayed said, "Oh, I'm not DSA. I'm a capitalist."
He is. We know that.
He's a Marxist. And I think these guys are going to set the Democrat Party back maybe a couple decades.
Good. And the Democrat Party keeps saying, Big Tent Party, Big Tent Party. I love it. They're afraid. Yeah. And they're being destroyed by their own fecklessness, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. These guys are gutless. Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries are absolutely gutless. If Nancy Pelosi was still in charge, this never would have happened. As much as we like to bag on Nancy Pelosi for lots of good reasons, she ran that party with an iron fist. And people forget that AOC tried to do this in, I think it was either 2018 or 2020 with the group called Justice Democrats, which is also another socialist sort of DSA type of organization. And Nancy Pelosi said anybody who is connected to Justice Democrats, if they run anybody against a Democrat incumbent, we're going to cut all funding and we're going to find people to run against you. And that's what a party does. That's how a party controls that stuff. Yeah.
Britain, Boogaloo, your column. Harry and Meghan Merkel are going back to Britain. I cannot stand these people. Oprah's got to be so sad.
I'm so sad.
Oprah?
I'm so sad.
I'm
so sad.
They're neighbors.
Well, you notice that Oprah hasn't had a whole lot to do with Meghan and Harry for the last few years, right? Mm-hmm. You've noticed that these guys, all the celebrity friends sort of disappeared a few years ago, along with all the money. And that's the reason why these two clowns are going back. I mean, I think that they forgot that their only real value, their only real currency here was the fact that they were royals. And so when they renounced their royalty to come to the United States,
they want us to leave their
grifters.
They want us to stop talking about them publicly and invading their privacy. So I think that's great. They should stop going in front of cameras. They should get the hell out of here.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, did you see the South Park episode about that?
Yes,
that was hilarious.
That's exactly. It was spot on. It was spot on.
They're so good.
Running in front of cameras, going on talk shows. Give us our privacy. We demand our privacy. It's so perfect. I mean, these people are reviled by hopefully as many people as we think. I mean, I can't stand them. Last thing is this, before we let you go, you've been generous with your time. Minnesota is suing Texas. They want the ICE agent who is in custody here in Texas. We got like 3 days left or something, and he'll be released. The extradition will go bye-bye after 90 days. Governor Abbott stood firm and said, we're not going to do nothing until, no double entendre intended, we're not going to do nothing until you pay back us for all the fraud to this country. What are your thoughts on that?
I thought it was great. This case against the ICE agent isn't going to go anywhere in Minnesota courts because he was operating as an ICE agent. This was part of his official duties, right? Now, if he committed a crime, the federal courts and the Department of Justice has jurisdiction over that. There is it's called a removal process, and it exists because first off, because of the supremacy clause, but also because they don't want states and localities to interfere with the operation of federal officers while they are conducting official business.
Yes.
And that's what happened in this case. So even if he gets extradited, the ICE agent there is going to apply for removal to federal court. Federal court
Right.
will grant it because it's clearly within the removal parameters. And then it becomes the Department of Justice's case, and the Department of Justice will simply dismiss it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what should happen, Ed, right?
Yes.
Ed Morrissey.
I think that if the Department of Justice really should, I think the Department of Homeland Security is still doing an investigation of this. And if he committed crimes, he should be held accountable for that. But that's not what's happening. That's not why Tim Waltz and Keith Ellison and Mary Moriarty, who's one of the most politically corrupt DAs in the country.
Yes.
That's not
Hennepin
why
County.
they're filing charges against this guy. Hennepin County,
Yeah. Ed Morrissey, absolutely a privilege to have you on and a wonderful visit with you. HotAir.com. Read him. He's excellent. Appreciate you. Look forward to having you on down the road again, sir, okay?
Absolutely. Sounds great. Thanks.
Take care. There he goes. Great guy there, and look forward to having him on again. Yeah. So I had the pleasure of interviewing him in Chicago a couple days ago when I was filling in there on AM 560. The Answer. Had a blast. Tomorrow morning, by the way, just a little heads up, I'll be on in Indianapolis on WIBC, 93 WIBC. Just Google WIBC and you'll see how you can listen live tomorrow, 9 to noon Eastern, 8 to 11 Central. In just a moment, I'm going to play for you a video of a woman, or a young woman, who is literally in, she's in front of Dallas College getting honored, and she's wearing a niqab. You can only see her little eye slits, and she looks like she's making fun of Muslims, but yet she is a Muslim. It's a little crazy. We'll get into that in just a moment. I also have a whole bunch more. We got more on Karmelo Anthony. And let's see, I got some other great stuff to play for you coming up in just a minute, as well as, well, let's do Karmelo Anthony as well. All that's coming up next. It's Chris Crock on Crock Talk, of course, my podcast. The first thing I want to do is tell you this. My wife was not happy when I told her that we were going to have a new roof put on. She says, we don't need a new roof. I said, yes, we do. And she said, I said, open up a claim. She was so PO'd. But now she's the happiest wife in this whole neighborhood because Blue Ribbon Roofing literally blew up our whole house, blew up our entire house from the damage, and it looks incredible. I want to show you what Blue Ribbon Roofing did to our house. This is my roof before, with John Hopkins, the owner and president of Blue Ribbon Roofing, on my house.
All the shingles gone. Now you're down to the fiberglass mat.
There he is showing how it's damaged. But look at the color there, okay? Well, here's my new roof. It's black. Check it out. It's beautiful. These are Class 4 shingles. Class 4 shingles means and here's those Class 4 shingles. It's the highest level of protection. I got a $613 discount on my annual policy because of that. With my new roof discount, it went to $2,200 lower. It went from $5,500 to $3,300. Go to blueribbondfw.com. There's those Class 4 shingles. Here they are. They replaced the entire decking. The previous people who did my roof 7 years ago did not, either were too lazy or too ignorant to know that if the decking's too thin, code says the insurance company has to pay for a new replacement underneath the shingles. So I got a whole new deck thanks to Blue Ribbon DFW because they know their schnizzle. But look at what they also did to my house. This is where I wanted to show you. Look at these copper gutters, guys. The black accents they painted, copper gutters, dude. Who has copper gutters? I do. John said you're gonna be the only one in your neighborhood with copper gutters. They look so freaking awesome. It's a cool kick. Here's my front door, brand new wood. They stained it and installed a whole new door. Here is my shingles. Look at that, brand new shingles they built from scratch. They are the best. Go to blueribbondfw.com, 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 and of course, tell them Chris Crock sent you. Now, I would venture to say that most of my followers don't, you probably don't go patronize adult bookstores. However, if you do, just be aware that in the back there could be minors being sex trafficked. It just happened, a major joint takedown of a child and adult sex trafficking ring out of a bookstore in Dallas. Paris Adult Bookstore on Harry Hines Boulevard. in a massive raid. They called it Midnight at Paris, conducted by DPD, Dallas Police, Texas IRS Criminal Division Investigation Office, Homeland Security, the Attorney's Office prosecuted, the Northern District of Illinois, U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Trump administration took them down as well. And there were minors being sex trafficked while people were in that store buying stuff. It happens all the time, everywhere. Here's a little sweet girl from Collin County that is missing, that has been sex trafficked. This is currently going on right now. 8 out of 10 on the critical score, according to missingchildrenalert.us. Samara Abigail Griffith, she is missing from Collin County. Look at that beautiful sweetheart, missing. They befriend people that befriend them over several months on social media and then in person, and they go out with them and this and that. Everything's fine. And then one day they get told with a gun, stay in the car, and they go into sex trafficked within an hour or two. It's happening all over. It happened to a 15-year-old girl who went to a Dallas Mavericks game with her dad, went to the bathroom, and then never came back to the seat. And then within 2 hours, she's being sex trafficked inside of a hotel room, being abused. Thank God she came back okay, other than the horror that she went through. There is a great Christian ministry that provides licensed professional counseling to these women. Many sex trafficking victims have even been sex trafficked by their own moms who do drugs and have them sex trafficked in their own house so they can make money for their drugs and pay for their drugs. These women come in mad at the world. They come in blaming themselves. And the only advocate they have oftentimes are these counselors, licensed practicing counselors that are Christian counselors. And they are rebuilding women's lives. They are working with safe houses. They have to hide in a safe house. There are 4 safe houses this organization uses. I want you to donate for North Texas Giving Day, okay? They're one of my sponsors, Thrive Counseling Services. This is their logo, and they are based out of Deep Ellum in Dallas, and they are helping young women rebuild their lives so they can thrive. In many cases, they're asking a judge for a second chance or getting their children back from custody. Here's how you can donate through North Texas Giving Day. Just go to that link right there. It'll take you to the North Texas Giving Day page. You can already donate right now. You can donate right now, okay? I do it monthly. I'm auto debit on my account. And here is also in addition to that link, here is a QR code if you want to just scan that, okay? So, help them. They work with Alive at Last, the Poema Foundation, Refuge City, and Exodus Ministry. Get these girls and these young women out and get them back on in their life, get their lives back to work. The faith-based professional counseling, a lot of them join churches. Go to Thrive Counseling and donate right now through the North Texas Giving Day website. There it is, okay? A nice short link for you. All right? Please do that. It's an amazing ministry. Let's get to a couple things. James Tallarico, Carmelo Anthony first. I told you that Carmelo Anthony said vile, horrible things under that tent before he murdered Austin Metcalf. He said stuff like, F y'all, you all a bunch of P words. He threatened them to, I'll quote, I'll beat your ass, is one of the things he said, according to 7 witnesses, 2 of whom are black. He went under that tent to kill. In fact, his own ex-girlfriend testified or told prosecutors all these evil, wicked things. Carmelo is worse and more vile and more of honestly, animalistic behaviors and murderous, animalistic behaviors. His parents, Fox News reported earlier today, took him while they were still living in Baton Rouge, took him to LSU for some kind of special treatment or counseling for somebody who's got massive violent tendencies or something like that. They fled. They left Baton Rouge for a better life in Dallas-Fort Worth. I told you way back when, before this whole case came to a guilty conclusion, I told you before, during, and after, I said that Carmelo Anthony's family can move here from Baton Rouge, which is not some third world country. They can move here, but they still bring their problems with him. I told you he was a young man who was filled with rage and that his parents raised him to be a victim and that black people are discriminated against. I told you his grandmama said it was racism and bias in the parking lot after he was convicted of being guilty for being a murderer. Well, now we find out today through testimony, this gentleman's agreement, which, by the way, those are normal. There's nothing out of the normal. And multiple people talking today on Fox News. You had, for example, the former chief prosecutor in Collin County Prosecutor Office, where all this happened in Collin County in North Texas, Northern County for Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. And she told Will Kane on Fox News this afternoon, this is very common. for them to decide to do gentlemen's agreements, but it was very common for them to decide beforehand, like defense attorneys, and I heard it on Fox News, that it's very common, separately, it's very common for them to decide right up to the last minute whether or not the defendant will testify. They rehearse the defendant, they get the defendant ready to testify, but they don't decide until right before, because you don't do that unless you need to, or if the defendant is worthy of doing it. And you also don't do that if your ex-girlfriend says that you were stalking her hours before he murdered Austin Metcalf, and that you were threatening and the ex-girlfriend said he had threatening and violent text on his phone. Girlfriend confided to an assistant principal April 2nd of last year that Karmelo was stalking her after a breakup and that he was obsessed with fights, guns, and knives. Anthony also sent a picture of the knife after he told his girlfriend, I'm low-key on the verge, meaning he's on the verge of killing somebody. He was spiraling, the prosecutor said. A few hours later, Karmelo Anthony stabbed Metcalf to death under a tent at a track meet. And all the stuff that comes out today, and also that supposedly Austin Metcalf spray painted with his brother when he was 12 years old in 6th grade, Nazi stuff and, KKK and murder black people or whatever, stuff like that. That was when he was 12. Of course, there's nothing okay about it, and it's very disturbing. But that was when he was 12. Karmelo was in Louisiana when Austin Metcalf did that. Karmelo didn't know, and all the evidence and all the testimony so far, Karmelo didn't know Austin Metcalf from Adam. That is completely irrelevant. Regardless, what matters is the facts and what happened under that tent. And under that tent, he was murdered because Karmelo wanted to murder somebody, and he also said he wanted to lick the blood off of a knife after he stabbed somebody. So let's go. Let's bring it on. Also, remember, Karmelo's defense attorney said last week that he had said that they brought it out to try to taint a possible future jury pool and to taint the case and make Karmelo look like a victim by saying that there was family violence, serious family violence in his house, meaning dad or mom was beating the hell out of him or each other, God knows what. I'm not surprised at those allegations. But 1 in 100 at best appeals are granted. 1 in 100 appeals at best are granted. Karmelo will not get an appeal. I repeat, he will not get an appeal. While the appeals process has started, they filed a week or two ago. They waited a long time. You have, I think, 75 days, from the moment. But the other thing is, even though the proceedings are going on today, I'm sure tomorrow, here's the problem. They got like 4 days. And at 4 days roughly from right now, or three or 4 days roughly from right now, no matter what the case has, no matter what process is going on, it automatically stops and it's done. In other words, if this current adjudication going on, current trying to get an appeal, if the process is continuing on past, I think, 4 days from now roughly, after the deadline, at the deadline, it stops and it's over. They can't appeal, they can't do anything. It's completely over. It's done. It's gone. And it'll forever. And so they have to rush and finish off here in a handful of days. And none of this changes the fact that Karmelo Anthony murdered Austin Metcalf under that tent. Another thing is that the former chief prosecutor of the Collin County Prosecutor's Office, who was on Will Cain's show today, she also said this. She said, and this is very, very true. I knew this too, but judges in an attempt for appeals like Karmelo right now, they are very, very, very loath to ever want to go back to what the jury and judge have already done. They do not want to mess with what they did because they know the facts, they saw the entire case, and they made their decision. And so judges are very, very, very loath to ever want to question or go back on that. The only time when they would have a chance at getting an appeal granted is if, like, for example, the Murdoch case or whatever it's called in the Carolinas. There was somebody in the courtroom that was like a assistant court secretary or something like that. Remember, she made some statements, she did some things that were like, whoa, that granted them a new trial. If there's a material fact within the case. Now, a gentleman's agreement is normal. That has nothing to do with it. And it was a deal that was made so that you wouldn't have to hear Karmelo wanting to lick the blade off of the blood off of a knife after he murders somebody. You didn't have to hear about Karmelo stalking his girlfriend. You didn't have to hear about violent texts and threats and threatening stuff. They didn't want you to know about that. And just as the same thing with the prosecution, they didn't want you to know about Austin Metcalf spray painting, pro-Nazi, pro-racial, racist things, and that he did when he was 12. Again, Karmelo didn't know about this. Karmelo didn't know him when this was going on. Karmelo wasn't even in the state up until, a year or two ago? So it's totally irrelevant. It does not matter. So he will not get an appeal. I've told you this for weeks. Karmelo Anthony, watch me again. Karmelo Anthony will not get an appeal. The chances of him actually getting an appeal granted is 1 in 100 at best. If he does get that, which he will not, the chances of him winning an appeal are even worse, way worse than 1 in 100. So he has less than 1% chance of getting an appeal, and he's even less than 1% chance of winning an appeal. He's not going to get an appeal. I repeat, he's not going to get an appeal. There is nothing about a juror doing something wrong or a juror lying about something. There's nothing material in the case that would have changed the adjudication, the outcome. So that is the deal with Karmelo. It's just not going to happen for him, much to his and his family's chagrin. And you saw a couple dozen people. And by the way, you saw a couple dozen people come out of the courthouse today, and they were like, or yesterday, because they the appeal, the judge, because Judge John Roach was removed. Now, Judge John Roach wasn't removed because he did anything wrong. In fact, the judge that heard that case yesterday to whether or not to replace Judge Roach, he literally said, I don't think that Judge Roach did anything wrong. I don't think Judge Roach needs to be removed from the hearing of the possibility of an appeal. But I asked Judge Roach, how do you think this would look to the average people out there that aren't in this case at all, the average person out there? And Justice, I guess it would look a little bit because he spoke to one of the television stations, I think it was Channel 8, afterwards, and he said the case was done right and everything, the facts were straight and it was the right outcome. He said, I don't have to do it, you're right, and there's nothing that was done wrong. But okay, because the fact that somebody out there might think it's a little bit not okay, sure, I'll recuse myself. Again, the judge didn't say he had to. And so you have a new judge today, which out of Kaufman County, retired judge. And it's going to be the same outcome, though, just so you know that. And the people that went out and cheered yesterday wearing purple for the murderer Karmelo Anthony, who should have gotten a lot more than 35 years in court, that was your fun day because there's not going to be any more good news that you're going to get. And second of all, notice there were only a dozen or 2 dozen people out there yesterday that were happy. Where's all the crowds? Where's the 500 people, 200 people? Where are the crowds? As each day and each week progresses, the crowds are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Karmelo Anthony will become, as each month progresses and each year, smaller and smaller and smaller, less known, less talked about. And he will be in that jail for 35 years. Actually, it'll probably be 17 years or something like that. It should be a lot longer, but he will be forgotten about, and he will be having to be worried about getting sexually assaulted all the time from men who want a piece of him. Karmelo, don't drop the soap. Don't drop the soap. Don't drop the soap. Enjoy prison. Oh, by the way, when they pulled him in for these hearings, he's in chains, just like he belongs, because he is a murderer, a violent and vile, hate-filled murderer. What else do I have for you? Tellerico says God is not a Christian. That's right here. We played it a little earlier, but I mean, this is unreal. Here we go.
God is not a Presbyterian. God is not a Christian. God is not a noun at all. God is a verb. God is not a being. God is being itself. God is love. And that's why Jesus is against anything that gets in the way of that love between neighbors.
Okay, God is a Christian. His son, his name is Christ. He gave his one and only son so that whoever shall, for God so loved the world, he gave his one and only son, that whoever shall, I can't remember, shall have eternal life. Basically, if you confess that he's your son, Jesus is Christ, and Christ is Christian, and it's God's son. There's no question that God's a Christian. And also, in the Bible, he's called many things. Elohim, Yahweh, so many did, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Jireh, he, him, I am the great I am. So the point of this is that he is a male. He is a God. He is our God. He is the God. Excuse me, and God is Christian. So it's complete blasphemy. It's against even the faith he claims to be a part of. And then he goes on Charlemagne the God and says, "Yeah, Carmelo Anthony's a victim." Basically,
in Texas, we see what happened with Carmelo Anthony, and you said it was a tragedy.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Well, I've done a lot of work in the State House on justice reform, and right now we've got a system that doesn't serve all Americans equally, and we know that Black Texans have not gotten the justice they deserve in many cases. And I'm not an expert on this particular case, but I know that there were no Black members of the jury, and to me, that's the only evidence you need to really prove that this system is not working.
There were 3 Hispanics, I think 2 or 3 Indian Americans. There was a woman in a hijab, presumably Muslim, on the panel of juries. There were 12 jurors as well as 6 impaneled for alternates. So that was the makeup. So you had like 6 or 7 or between 6 and 8 minorities on the total out of the 18. So the jury makeup was 1/3 of them, whether they're alternates or jurors that were seated. 1/3 of them were minorities. James Tallarico's playing the game because he wants the black vote. He's not going to get the black vote at all like Jazzy would have gotten. He needs Hussein Obama level numbers, and he's not going to get that. What was really surprising in a great way to me was hearing Ed Morrissey from Hot Air, who was on this podcast about 30 minutes earlier. If you haven't seen it, go back. It's really, really good. He said that he agreed with me. My take for like 2 or 3 months now, at least, maybe 4 months, maybe even 5 months, I don't know, that Tallarico is going to lose by 7 to 12 points. Remember Colin Allred, a black man, and an NFL and Baylor star, lost to Ted Cruz by 9 freaking points. I said Tallarico is going to lose by 7 to 12 points. I've been saying that for months and months, and he said yes. And he actually thinks that my prediction is going to be on the higher side, that it'll probably be closer to 12 points that Tallarico is going to lose by. And you can whiz away hundreds of millions of dollars, and you will still lose in this state to Ken Paxton. It's unequivocal. In just one moment, you have to see a Muslim young woman who was being lauded at Dallas College. But what she dresses up in a niqab, where you can only see the slits of her eyes, and how and what is on her niqab, it looks like it's a joke. It looks like something like my friend, what's his name, Alex Stein, who's been on my podcast. It's been way too long. I got to have him on again. It looks like something Alex Stein would wear to go somewhere. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I'm going to couple that with, did you hear about Great Britain? They're handing out to their migrants a list of things that are like teaching them things about women that you're not allowed to do if you go to Great Britain. And it begs the question, why the hell are you letting people come into your country if you have to tell them these certain things? You got to hear this. Coming up next, plus you got to see this young Muslim woman receiving this award and what she's wearing. It's like, this is crazy. In just 1 second. But first, are you single? And I'm not interested in you if you're single. I'm just saying, are you single? Because I'm not single. But here's why I'm asking. Do you have family support? Do you have friends? Do you have neighbors and great support, or are you kind of missing something? Would you like more support and more family? Because there's an amazing singles 30 plus weekly Bible study that goes on at Prestonwood Church. Now, it's such an amazing hangout and place for singles 30 plus that are Christian that the members of the class are actually paying me to tell you about them. And Prestonwood approved it, but they're not paying me. That members are. That's how amazing the class is. I've never heard of this, but I get to do it because it's so incredible. Look at all the fun things they do. Let me show you some things here. Here they go roller skating together as a class, and they go to free play, playing video games, and go to dinner as a class. When you go there and you show up at Prestonwood every Wednesday at 6:30 at the singles ministry, you get hugs if you want. You don't have to. Here they are getting preached to by Pastor Brandon, who is beloved by the folks. And here's some other, same thing going on in the different room. Lots of great preaching. Look at all those people. Look at that guy in the lower right. He looks like an actor or something, like some good-looking guys and gals in that 30s class. I'm not trying to set you up. I'm just telling you that it's a fantastic. Don't tell them. Don't get me in trouble. It's a great class. And here is a QR code for the Resonate, not remote. Resonate Singles Bible Studies at Prestonwood Church for ages 30s plus. Scan that QR code. It'll tell you how to get there. It's Wednesdays at 6:30 at Prestonwood Christian Academy Building, Horner Room. You just go to Prestonwood Church and say, where's the singles Bible study, singles group Bible study. Meaningful support, Bible study, warm fellowship. Here's also the address where you can go, and here's their logo. Here's the you just Google Resonate Singles on Facebook. Put that in Facebook, Resonate Singles. It shows you who they are. You can check them out and also how to get there. So you can do that through Facebook, Resonate Singles. It's Wednesdays at 6:30 at Prestonwood Christian Academy Building in the Horner Room. Single again, widowed, powerful worship, biblical teaching, authentic community. They go to car shows, roller skating. By the way, after every Wednesday night, they end up going to out to eat together. So you get great fellowship. They go to Chili's, Snuffers, Jimmy John's, Fuzzy's, and they just have a lot of fun. It's that amazing of a group, okay? Check it out. Resonate Singles at Prestonwood Church. What else do I have for you? Let us see, my friends. Hold on. And hold on. Give me a second. My technological skills aren't always the best here. Can you tell? There we go. Okay. Here's a young lady, and I don't mean to besmirch her, but this is crazy. It's like, what's going on here? Here's a young lady who was given an award at Dallas College the other day. And I'm not trying to be rude, but it really looks like it's a parody or something, but it's not.
The stories we are choosing to tell are stories of people who have been silenced for far too long and ignored by too many people. So thank you so much for letting me talk here, and thank you for your time.
She did something.
Well, congratulations, and thank you for representing Dallas College so well. We'd love to have you come up and get a photo. We could? And we'll go up there.
They're all coming. There she is again. And I mean, anyways, kind of zoom in a little bit. Okay. But I mean, basically, and again, not trying to be rude or nasty, but I mean, that's pretty wild, pretty sad for the poor young lady. I feel. Also, what just came in yesterday is that Great Britain hands out 9 pages. This is from Bill Malugin, Fox News. Great Britain hands out 9 pages of informational sheets to their migrants. And it instructs them that women are, and let me pull this up. You have to, I mean, this is flabbergasting and unreal. I'm going to go down to where that post was because you literally do have to read it. It's just absolutely unreal. I'm going to pull it up. But basically, they pass out these sheets to their quote-unquote migrants in Britain, and they tell, it's not there. Let me see one more, because they tell the women, they say the migrants, I'm going to pull this up real fast. They tell the migrants, quote-unquote, that women are allowed to work, women are allowed to study, women you cannot force them to have sex, you can't rape them without their consent, you can't have sex without their consent, and women are allowed to work, they're allowed to study, and you can't rape them. If you have to pass out 9-page lessons to people that you are calling migrants and letting into your country, you are a fool, and you should not let them in your country. You should never let somebody into your country that has to be told you can't just rape. Oh, you can't rape a woman. That is Great Britain literally allowing themselves to be destroyed. They're inviting the enemy in. If you have to tell somebody that they can't rape a woman, that they can't stop a woman from studying, that they can't beat a woman, that they can't stop a woman from working, don't invite them into your country unless you want it to be destroyed. And that's what Britain's been doing for decades. And that's why they will become an Islamic State in about 20 years, 30 years, they will become a completely Islamic state, as will France, as will Germany. It's very sad, but it's true. Meantime, let's see, did I have one more thing to play for you here? Let's see here. In the meantime, Duncanville police arrest suspect on I-20 road rage shooting. This is from the Dallas Express today. Duncanville police in suburban Dallas-Fort Worth have arrested a 58-year-old man in connection with road rage shooting on Interstate 20 last month that left a driver wounded in the face. He's charged with 2 counts of ag assault with a deadly weapon, a second-degree felony. Number 1, I'm not blaming the woman who was shot here. Or man, I think it was a woman. I'm not blaming that person. What I am saying is this. Don't react to somebody who's road raging on you. Don't look at them. Don't do gestures. Even if you're trying to be nice, they will mistake them and they will come for you. Ignore it. I carry a firearm 99.9% of the time wherever I go, and I don't mess with people when they have road rage. I don't look at them. I just ignore them and such. It's not worth dying. Guess what? Guess how they caught him? Are you ready for this? Get ready to be outraged. Flock cameras. They caught him with a flock camera. Oh my gosh, flock cameras so bad. No, they're not. McKinney recall opponents packed City Hall last night as political fight intensifies. They once again packed it, but this time the overwhelming majority were speakers who addressed the council to voice opposition to the growing recall effort to Mayor Bill Cox and 3 council members. Oh boy, here we go. So a bunch of people showed up, according to this, defended the city council, pushed back against concerns. They have been vilifying, attacking, obfuscating, showing up where they're supposed to be collecting signatures for the recall effort and calling businesses where the recall effort's going on and scaring them away from hosting recall efforts. To the people of the recall committee in McKinney, I have a few things to say. Number 1, you say it's not because of the Muslim thing. It is because of the mosque. Don't lie. I mean, you can lie if you want, but I don't think you should. I think you should be honest. Number 2, they have a right to do it, and I support it because if they don't feel their representatives are doing what they want them to do, then nail them, throw them out. I will be truthful though. The mosque issue was merely a yes or no vote, and the yes or no vote was merely, is this mosque expansion in compliance with the zoning laws and the rules on how that area could be zoned and for the square footage and stuff. And the answer was yes, it fits the technical and legal ramifications. In fact, 2 years ago, the city council voted unanimously 7-0 to deny this same mosque for expansion. Why? Because 2 years ago, the mosque tried to go from 15,000 square feet to 45,000 square feet, which is completely illegal against zoning laws. And so they were actually uniformly denied 2 years ago. This time, they decided instead of trying to make the mosque from 15,000 square feet to 45,000 square feet, they made 3 buildings that would total almost 45,000 square foot, but they're all separate. And they had to, by law, say yes. If they didn't, then the mosque could sue them and they would lose. The county would lose. However, it obviously is clear to me that they have very liberal representation of the board and the mayor and the city manager. I would throw these people the hell out if I lived in McKinney. So I would vote to recall these people. So the recall people, I support you. I'm going to reach out to one of the guys that's leading it, have them on. And I wish you the best. And people should not be afraid. Even though former McKinney Mayor George Fuller has said, we can point out every one of you, and we're gonna, you can sign that, but we're gonna find out who you are, and we're gonna let everybody know who you are. Shame on you, Mayor Fuller. Shame on all these people, these leftists trying to stop, bully, intimidate. It would make me more determined to sign that petition. I can't because I don't live in McKinney, but otherwise I would. This show has been brought to you by IRSprob.com. By the way, I'll be on in Indianapolis tomorrow morning, 8 to 11 Central, 9 to noon, WIBC 93 WIBC. You can Google that. It's on all my social media feeds telling you I'll be there tomorrow. And you can listen live if you like, 8 to 11 Central, 9 to noon Eastern. This show is brought to you by IRSprob.com, IRSPRB.com, helping good people with IRS problems, specializing in IRS controversy, IRS audits, and tax